Hello, hello. Welcome back to another Chainsaw Man stream. So, episode 11. Before we get into it, obviously, this one is pretty big in terms of everything that has gone down. Right, we've got a lot of sus stuff in here. We'll see how that plays out in the finale of the core. I mean, at this point, I'm fully convinced that the ultimate big bad is Makima, and I'm 9,000,000% convinced that also the whole Aki death, which we'll get to in a second, I'm 100,000,000% convinced it is by Makima. Like, 500%. Which seems sort of odd, but we'll get to it. We open the episode, and I believe this is actually the first time where we've jumped back in time instead of like forward a whole bunch of days and whatnot. So that was already interesting, but obviously we see the deal take place. In terms of animation, right away, I thought it was really interesting how they've nailed, like, Aki's grimace, right? His eyes are sort of sunken and dead, and when you put his morning routine and this Aki side by side, I mean, the difference is so clear, and it's kind of amazing how much they managed to capture it. It might be me, like, inserting my own thoughts into it, and it's not actually there, but purely based on my, like, kind of first gut reaction when I saw it, it really feels like Aki is changed. Like, really changed. Without even speaking a word. Just his entire face, his entire outlook. It feels different. And it's surprising how well it's captured here. Though, I do admit, that might just be me. They translated Future's prediction, your death will ruled. In the actual translation, you will Oh! Okay, okay, so what we're going to talk about is drastically different then. Because I went off of the assumption that he said that your death will rule. We'll get to it. Let's not jump around. First things first. Actually seeing the Future Devil. So obviously, now I know that random raving tree in the intro is actually the Future Devil. I had no idea, but I love this dude. I love this character so much. It's the most neutral, chaotic character force I have ever seen. And if he doesn't appear again, frankly, I'm gonna be disappointed. Like, no joke, this devil might be my favorite character in the entire series. I love it so much. The fact that he just literally starts dancing randomly, it's so good. I love it. It's so chaotic. Oh, for those of you who know abroad in Japan, I wrote down in my notes, oh my god, this devil is literally Natsuki. I don't know why, he reminded of the same energy. Just the way he speaks, the phrases he throws out, it was so wacky, and I loved it. It was so good. But yeah, he then asks Aki to stick his head into his gut to see his future. And that's when, I guess, the mistranslation happens, because I assumed that he was saying, your death in the future will rule, right? Implying that I am this ultimate neutral force, and frankly, I'm just here to have fun, right? So to me, your death will rule because it's just gonna be brutal or whatever. But if the actual translation is the worst death imaginable, I think it recontextualizes the character more so than my thoughts on it. I still think that either way, it is probably talking about Makima killing him. Which, to jump ahead a little bit, I feel like the fake-out death at the end of the episode, in this context, feels a bit off. I don't think he's dead, by the way. Like, at the end of the episode, we see him strangled. Not for a second do I think he's in any danger whatsoever. In fact, I am willing to bet that with Makima, like, we see her walking out of the... Again, we'll get to it, but we see her walking out of the house, and she's sort of like, cool guys don't look at explosions type energy. I feel like she's going to kill everyone there. And I feel like Denji and all the others won't really even do anything in this mission. Well, they already have, but you get what I mean. So, I do think that Aki's death will happen by Makima, and that is why either it's going to be awesome, or it's going to be brutal. So, either way, I think it is what it is. But in terms of contextualizing the Future Devil, again, the whole neutral, chaotic force, the fact that he's like, oh, listen to this, right? And he just starts talking about how he's gonna die. He's obviously cut off because this is a story, right? Clearly that has to happen. This is like every story ever. Hey, I'm gonna spoil something huge that you don't that you want to know. right? But there just so happens to be a character by your side that is righteous and doesn't want to know. They want to find out themselves. So that's what we see here. But I love it. I love it so much. It's such a cool devil, and I hope we get to see more of it. Also, in terms of the power, the fact that it sort of goes into Aki's eye. We've been talking about eyes for a while now. And the fact that Power's eyes are messed up makes sense. She's a fiend, right? But Makima's eyes. Why are Makima's eyes so weird? Just saying. Just saying. Then we go into the intro where, yes, I did absolutely laugh my ass off when I saw that the raving tree was actually the devil. I did not know. But again, it sort of goes to speak about the whole spoilery nature of intros and outros, right? Because technically, when I now look at it, like knowing what I know now, the intro has so many spoilers, right? It's not really anything explicit. It's just characters that show up, which I guess are technically spoilers, right? But I just didn't know. I just didn't know. Though cutting to Levi, whose name I think is Kishibe, because I automatically think of JoJo, right? That's why I remember his name now. It's Kishibe Rohan. Again, the ambiance we get of the scene, right? So they're still training. He's basically just beating up Power and Denji again for the millionth time. And he says that they're going to cut back for a week or whatever. But the ambiance again in the scene, just the small details in the background, the birds chirping and everything. It's so good. It's so good. It's that attention to detail. And later when we get to the shrine, I'm going to mention this again, but whoever's like responsible for the sound design of Chainsaw Man, they deserve so much more praise than they get probably. It's that little touch that just finishes everything. I love it. I love it. But yeah, here we get the big reveal, which I thought was a big reveal, but ultimately isn't really that big of a deal, considering we literally get to it 10 minutes later. He basically says that we're going after the samurai and the snake lady right away, and the entire division depends on this mission. I thought, okay, that's going to be something big. It's probably going to take a while. No, it doesn't. It takes literally 10 minutes, which, again, the pacing of Chainsaw Man has also been ridiculous. I don't know how fast the source material is, but it feels like we are moving very, very, very fast. A lot of people are complaining about that online. About the translation. I mean, yeah, I guess it could be interesting to hear from like a native Japanese speaker, because obviously the literal translation might have been wrong, but the sort of implied meaning of it could still actually be closer to reality. Because that's often what happens, right? When you have these literal translations, people get caught up with translating everything word for word, even if it doesn't really make sense. I mean, the biggest example of that is translating jokes that just literally don't make sense in another language. I don't know. I haven't seen anything about that online, though. Though, to be fair, I'm sort of employing my One Piece strategy at this point. I'm blocking out everything to do with Chainsaw Man, because clearly there are big deaths in this show, and I don't want to be spoiled on them. After he says that they can cut back to training like once per week, we cut to the shrine, right? I think it's supposed to be a shrine. Whatever it is, they're like sitting around the table and whatnot, and Levi is talking to Makima. Number one, the ambiance is again beautiful, the animation is beautiful, and listen to this. Do you know the balancing thing that fills with water? Like when you have like, what's it called? This sort of little stream, right? That flows down, it pours into this bamboo thing, and then it like kind of clicks down and then clicks back up. You can hear it in the background. You can literally hear it in the background. And I wrote it down and I bolded it. It's so good. It's so good. And also, I don't know if this is Levi being drunk or if he's serious or whatever the case, but he actually admits that he is attached to Power and Denji. And I don't know if it's just because Power and Denji are literally the best duo of all time. If he's drunk, if he always get attached to his students, and it's just like his persona that acts like he isn't. But whatever the case, I feel like this might be relevant for later on. And that's when we get to the big scene. He literally straight up calls her out, and he says that he doesn't care what she's doing, and how many dogs get killed in the process, where I wrote down, very curious choice of words. But she gets a pass as long as it serves mankind, and then emphasizing, but only in that case. Now, that seems very curious, to say the least. At this point, I don't know. I feel like he's the only one who could stop her. But this meeting here seems sort of sus. It's almost like she too controls him. Because so far, like, if I had to throw out a completely wild guess, my assumption from the story so far, which is sort of automatically invalidated because we just got introduced to, like, a list of new devil hunters, right? Which I didn't expect, by the way. We'll get to it later in the episode. But my assumption so far was that Makima would be the big bad, and just like we saw with Eye Patch Girl, at least the majority of the current division we know would somehow end up dying. And that's sort of what was already set up with Aki, right? That he only has X years to live. I think it was 2 years. So my assumption was that at least a part of them would die, and Levi would fulfill this role of always being sort of that... It's sort of the history repeating itself, right? The story started, he lost someone close to him. We always see him at the graves. Then he stands there with Eye Patch Girl. She also dies. So he's still standing at the graves. And then another tragedy happens, and he's still once again standing there at the graves, right? That feels like his character narrative so far. So, to me, I feel like he is safe. I might be totally wrong, and he might literally die next episode. That is entirely possible. Because in terms of power and Denji's training, I guess he's fulfilled his role, based on what he himself says. Is Makima gonna kill him? I don't know. I feel like he's safe, though. And I don't know what his deal with her is. But yeah, here she says that she just wants to save as many people as possible, and he just literally says, "You liar." And then I was like, am I supposed to draw something from this? Like, are you being serious? If you are being serious, why are you tolerating her? Do you know you can't control her? Is she even more powerful than you? Are you working for her? Like, what's the deal here? I have no idea. But I love it. I want to find out more. And when these two interact, it's so different. Because usually we have a wacky personality in the mix. Someone like Denji or Power, right? With Levi. But with Makima, it's just seriousness all around. And I love it. But yes, then, without spending any more time on anything else, we cut right to the mission. And I was surprised immediately. Because again, the pacing. I mean, I thought it was going to be mentioned, then we're going to wait. But no, here we are, the mission is going on. We see the Sword Boy and the Snake Girl. Multiple times, she says that they don't need to worry about the big guy, and that if he dies, he can be brought back. Which I think is pretty clearly talking about the Gun Devil. If it's not, then I don't know. I feel like it is, though. It would make sense, I think. And of course, all of them also have guns, which we later learn is apparently just a deal for money, which very sus, very sus, very sus. They even mentioned it themselves. Why would devils need money? Which I do think is not a devil. I think it's a person. Because I don't think devils need money, but we'll get to it. And here, I don't know if I am silly or am I what, but I only now realized that the dude Denji was working for, at the very, very beginning, is the Grandad, and the zombies we saw in episode 1 are, from him, and all of that was obviously from there, and that's relevant again. So that's cool. I don't know if I just completely missed it somewhere along the way, but I didn't think that Denji's, first relationship that we ever saw, with the dude in the car, I never thought that would be relevant. And now that makes me wonder. Denji was technically working for them, right? So, how does that play into this whole thing? So many suspicious things going on here. It's probably something important, but I don't know what it is. Guess only time will tell. We then cut to the... I don't know their names. They probably said their names somewhere, but I'm just going to keep calling them the matching Scar duo, right? The dude and the lady. They're sitting in the car with Aki, And they basically also talk about how they have beef with the Gun Devil, but they know full well that killing it is impossible. So they're sort of going after it, but not really, right? I'm curious to find out their history there, and I'm curious to find out about the scar. I'm guessing it's something we're going to learn more about, because we've already seen 3 characters with the same scar. I'm guessing it's just the same contract, but I want to know what that is. And this is where, for the first time so far, I wrote down animation is a bit wonky in this one. It's not really anything major, but when we see them in the car, especially like there's a shot where we get from below and we see Aki in the car seat, it felt almost like a mid-frame that was used for an actual scene. It's not that it was bad, it just stood out compared to everything else so far. Is this something that was done under crunch? It might well be. Especially how deep into the core we already are. I think this is the first time where I've noticed something that like really stuck out to me in terms of the animation. But again, it's nothing major. It's like 1 or 2 scenes, and thankfully the fight at the end was incredible, and I loved it. And then they call him almost as if you were a manga character. Funny, very funny, very funny. Almost as if he was a manga character. Could you imagine if Aki was a manga character? But yeah, Aki is basically fueled by rage at this point, and he doesn't really care anything what they say, and he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go with them, and it's that. And he gets dropped off, and that's basically the end of the scene. In terms of the animation again, just to like further add to the whole inconsistency point, if Aki seemed a little bit wacky for a second there, when the Scar dude is getting back in the car, again, the super detailed stuff, right? His hair briefly bops up and down. Again, that's a detail nobody needed to put in there, but it is there. So it just feels like this episode was sort of stitched together from multiple people maybe, or something like that. And somewhere in the middle, they like, this might actually be it. They did all the important parts separately, and then they added these sort of in-betweens, right? And it's the in-betweens that suffered from crunch. That might be what happened there. And it's here where we probably get into what is the most ridiculous scene in this episode. We got to Makima and the crime boss. So again, the establishing shot. Literally every single establishing shot in Chainsaw Man has been incredible. And the shot of this little cottage in the forest was perfect. And here we also find out that, yeah, the Snake Girl has roped some kids into deals with the Gun Devil, so they pay 20,000 yen for guns and ammo. And he says, devils need ammo. Not ammo, they need money, right? And here I wrote down, or do they? And then I wrote down, this is a human 100%. The Denji parallels are too good not to be. I mean, come on. I've said this a million times. I'm gonna say it again. If you're writing a story, in most cases, based from what I've heard, people usually know the start and the end, and they fill in the middle. So if you wanted to write a story, and you want it to be big brain foreshadowy, you would put something relevant at the very, very start that is relevant for the very, very end. And assuming that the Gun Devil is the ultimate big bad, we put that at the very, very end. He needs money. And then we open the entire series with Denji needing money. How interesting. How interesting. Wouldn't that be a little bit foreshadowy, especially because Denji just so happens to turn into a devil. Very curious. Very curious. I don't think the Gun Devil is a devil. I'm not sure if it's Makima. I think it would be 3 million IQ if it turned out to be Makima, and Makima is here talking about herself in like the third person. I feel like that would be genius, but I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is. We hear that Makima actually needs all the names, so at least one of her powers does function like a Death Note. So, did you notice the meme, Makima and 5 guys behind? Oh my god. Oh my god, you're right. I've literally stopped on the frame too. Oh my god, you're right. I didn't notice it. How did I not notice it? I stopped on the frame. I'm going through the episode right now. I've got my notes and the episode. Oh my god. Oh my god, this is actually prime meme real estate. This must be intentional, right? I mean, this must be intentional. They put it there. This is 3 million IQ marketing from Mappa. I guarantee it. But yeah, at least one of her powers does function like a death note, by the looks of it. She needs a name. Does she need anything else? I guess only time will tell. But we know for a fact that, yes, she does need a name, and she asks him to write down all of their names. She obviously gets them by the end, is what I assume. The only thing that I found a little bit sad, we get the cigar cutter, right? I don't know what it's called, I have literally no idea. But the thing you use to cut cigar ends. And I immediately wrote down in my notes, if we don't see a finger shoved in that and cut off, I'm gonna be forever disappointed. And it didn't happen. It had to happen. Come on, it's a trope. I wanted to see it, but it didn't happen. But yeah, the Yakuza boss basically starts pitching and talking about a necessary evil. I'm guessing the whole necessary evil part is like super foreshadowy. It sounds like something that is super important. Is Makima the necessary evil? Is she some sort of border between the devils and humans? I've got no idea. Could she be some sort of higher than everyone else creature that basically makes life between them possible? I don't know. It feels super foreshadowy. It doesn't seem like something just some random dude would say. I don't know what it means though. Meme was in the manga as the author is up to date with the meme culture. It has to be. It has to be, right? It's like in the most recent season of Attack on Titan, there's like the random close-up of whatever her name is. Just like the super uncanny face. 1,000,000% that was a marketing stunt. There is no way somebody actually drew that on purpose. It's supposed to be a reactionary thing that is sort of word-of-mouth marketing, right? You just see this image somewhere and everybody's like, oh, where's that from? People are like, oh, it's Chainsaw Man. And then they watch Chainsaw Man. I mean, it's been proven. It works. It's almost as effective as misspelling a YouTube video and then getting 50 million comments about you misspelling a YouTube title. I did that on purpose once, and it worked. I've never done it again. I've never done it again, I promise. I did it to test. I did it to see what happens. I do a lot of these things to see what happens, by the way. Maybe I'll talk about them sometime. So this entire scene was very, very uneasy, right? I fully expected Makima just to go Morbin time, but she kind of doesn't. She just pulls out, like, the bag of eyes, and then she's like, okay, all of your loved ones, their eyes are here. And this is what I mentioned a few episodes before, right? When we saw her kill all the dudes in the train, we saw holes in their chest. So what I assume is that one of her powers is the handy thing, where she needs the names, and she sort of squishes people into the ground. And I feel like another one of her powers is removing organs, or something along those lines. So if she could just pop out your eye, just like that, it would make sense how she would just collect all of them, I think. And then if they had like those giant holes in their chest, maybe she's collecting hearts for some reason. And then they're constantly going on about Denji's heart. Why is Makima collecting hearts? Very suspicious. Very suspicious. One of the dudes grabs her, and he faints with a bloody nose like immediately, right? And at the end of the episode, again, jumping ahead a little, Aki would also run into a whole bunch of dudes, all of whom would faint with bloody noses. So the connection is obviously there. Is this a third power of Makima's? I don't remember Makima molding anyone and anyone bleeding from like their nose or anything. I just remember them being crushed. So is this another power? How many powers does she have? I've got no idea. This does seem like something a little bit different though. This seems like severe intimidation to the point that like something in your body goes wrong. It's sort of like people's noses bleed, people throw up and all that from stress. So is this something along those lines? Like she can intimidate anybody so much to just literally make them fall then and there? I don't know. But then again, she did that to the people with Aki, right? So it also has a large range. So I don't know. And what's up with the crows? We didn't really see any crows this time around. Is that another power? I've got no idea. So that's all that happens on Makima's side for now. We then cut to Division 4 and the raid. Power and Denji are, as usual, the absolute dynamic duo, And the fact that the joke is carried on is so good. The fact that power is like, well, now we're smart, right? Now we're going to be so much more powerful because we've got big IQ. It's so good. I love it. I hope this gets carried on. And frankly, if they end up dying, I'm going to be sad. So far, I think they're safe, but I feel like they are going to die. I feel like they're going to die. I feel like so. Yeah. The Levi dude says there's no plan and that the entire division goes in. And here I wrote down, so it's a bloodbath? Because I assume that it's going to be such a bad mission that he's like, there is no plan because there's no point in making a plan. It's gonna end up a mess anyway, right? So we just go in and see what we can see. That's not really the case. My entire expectations were sort of thrown out of the window once again, right? Because we are introduced to a very, very long list of new characters. It's the Shark Fiend, which is basically the dude, what's his name? The dude we met in Dressrosa. The dude who can swim through the ground and stuff, right? That's the Shark Fiend. The Violence Fiend, which by the way, I love. I think the Violence Fiend is my favorite character, purely from the design. The fact that he's like constantly wearing the mask and everything, that's so cool. I love that. But also, we hear that normally becoming a fiend makes devils weaker, but he remained just as dangerous, right? So they force him to wear a poisonous gas mask, which was, I don't know if I should be keeping that in mind, whether that's going to be relevant. Whatever the case, I love his design. I hope he sticks around. Senior Pink, yes, that's the one. That's the one. Then for the Spider Devil, I wrote down, oh my god, it's Robin LMAO, because I mean it is. It literally is. So that's Robin. And then the Angel Devil looks like something out of Platinum End, and the fact that it reminds me of Platinum End made me sort of sad, but I kind of like the Angel Devil. I actually really dig the Angel Devil. And the brief conversation with Aki they have is also really, really cool. So we hear that their power is like physical contact starts to drain away a person's lifespan, right? And again, they're surprised that Aki came so close, which again feeds back to the whole Aki doesn't care anymore. And in terms of draining away your life, this is again one of those things that I want to ask, how set in stone is that? Because we know that he technically has 2 years to live. Is that like hard set in stone? Is that like his destiny? He's gonna die in 2 years? Or can that be cut short? And if that can be cut short, through what means can that be cut short? Can it only be cut short through powers that somehow limit your lifespan? Or can you just be killed within the space of these 2 years? Interesting. Interesting to think about. The Angel Devil confuses me. I want to know more about her the most. I mean, even from the design, everything about it is like super unique. Everything from like the halo and everything. It's so cool. And the scene of her like using her wing to protect Aki was like straight up Lucifer energy. And I love that too. Him, it's a dude. Yeah, that's why I was saying them, because I wasn't exactly sure. Whatever the case, I'm gonna keep calling them them. So yeah. And then like the very, very brief scene of Aki just rushing the dude who shot at him with the sword. That was really cool. I like that. That was badass. Who fears angels? I don't know, probably a lot of people. I don't know. The same argument could be used for Tomato Devil in episode 1. Honestly, the Tomato Devil would be pretty powerful. A lot of people don't like tomatoes, and if you extrapolate that, if I don't like a tomato and I see it in my fridge, I am a little bit afraid of the tomato. A little bit. Because what if it ends up on my food? I'm gonna be very sad, right? So technically, I'm making it more powerful because I don't like it. So Aki is making his way through the building alone, and then all the dudes show up. One of them has a bizarrely large weapon, which I actually wrote down in my notes. What's up with the perspective here? The guns look funnily big. Like one of the handguns. It looks gigantic, and I don't know why. But yeah, all of them faint, and that's the end of that. And I think it's also here where the scene actually happens. Yes. So as all of them faint, she's casually just walking outside with her hands again behind her back, casually eyes shut, just enjoying the nature breeze. Again, clearly, she's pulling all the strings here. Which side is she actually on? Who knows? Whatever the case, she is playing 5D chess while Aki is playing checkers. Unfortunate, but that's the reality of the situation. And then Aki finds the snake lady, and this is gonna be fun. So first I wrote down, is she just going to die in front of him? Because my assumption was that, okay, we just saw Makima kill all of these dudes. Is she also just gonna kill her? Like, is that literally what it's gonna be? Aki is gonna stand there, prepared for battle, and it's once again going to be that sort of subversion that Chainsaw Man has been doing so far, where we don't even get to the fight. She literally just dies in front of him, and that's that. That would have been interesting, I think, but we do see a fight. But before we do, a different version of Edge of Chainsaw Man begins to play, or Edge of Chainsaw is just Edge of Chainsaw, which, in my opinion, is the best soundtrack of the series. Edge of Chainsaw is in my Spotify playlist, and I think I can tell you how many times I've listened to it. I probably somehow can, but it's going to take too long. Whatever the case, it is on my main Spotify playlist that I play every single time I work on videos. So I've probably heard it at least a couple hundred times by now. Everybody should listen to it. But then, the snake spits out the ghost, which I naively thought, I'm gonna be honest, this was copium. This was 100% copium. For a second, I thought, what if Eye Patch Girl is back? What if Chainsaw Man has plot protection, or plot armor rather, and maybe, but no, it's just the Ghost Devil, which is apparently switched sides now. I don't know how that works. I honestly want to know how that works. How did she get it to switch sides suddenly? Because it seems to be going after Aki with like a complete intention to kill it, and she seems to be controlling it, especially because like she technically killed it, and she killed its wielder. Can you just maybe you can like capture somebody's contract? Is there some sort of transfer system of powers? I don't know. Devils do seem to have their own intention. Yeah, that's sort of what I was getting at, right? Because technically, it seemed like the Ghost Devil has a pretty strong bond with Eye Patch Girl, and maybe they just don't have sort of this attachment to humans because they're sort of already like higher beings. Maybe it's just like business to them, right? So you were defeated. This more powerful person wants to make a deal with me. Why not? Maybe it is a case of that. Maybe all devils want to sort of move up the ranks and somehow get to the Gun Devil. Maybe there's sort of hierarchy somewhere there. Whatever the case, I want to know more. And then Aki begins peering into the future, which is really cool. I love that. I wish we would have seen it. I want to see like how it actually works visually, right? Because hearing it is cool, but I would love if we saw some sort of like, not after image, but forward image, right? Where we see like the snake girl, maybe she like moves her hand, but we see a head, like a power already showing up or something like that. I feel like that would be really cool. I hope we get to see that. Oh, and the visuals of the little petals or whatever they're supposed to be flying like in front of Aki's face, and then his expression of just like pure shock as he sees the Ghost Devil. That was also like really, really good in terms of just capturing that emotion. And then in terms of the fight, you might remember, I think I spent like 10 minutes talking about Aki using the sword last time, right? With the Cursed Devil. I talked a lot about how the combat felt super weighty, right? That there's actually like weight behind every single one of his movements, and it's not him just zipping around like your typical anime fight. And I feel like this was the perfect 50-50 between both of them, right? This feels like something along the lines of like Demon Slayer, where they are zipping around a whole bunch, but they're grounded with that sort of like Chainsaw Man vibe that we've seen before. And if this is the type of battles we're going to see from the regular humans, then I feel like I'm on board. It's hard to describe because it is still your typical anime type of shot where you just follow him and he just goes vroom, vroom, vroom and all around and he just swings his sword like a badass, and it's great. But all of it still seems grounded. He's not jumping like 10 meters into the air or anything. So that I liked. But he is being choked to death, and it seems like that's the end of him. It's not, though. It's not. Like, not at all. It's not at all. But that's the episode. That's the episode. Clearly, This one is being set up to lead right into episode 12, even more so than all of the other times, I feel like. This is sort of like right after the Eye Patch Girl's death, right? It's sort of a cliffhanger. We'll see how that plays out. I'm guessing that episode 12 might end with a huge cliffhanger. That's purely my gut reaction right now, based on how they're going. Could it be something like super chill? Maybe. I don't think so, though. I feel like the next episode is going to set up something big again. But in terms of the ending, ending 11, violence. In terms of the visuals, I love this one so much. The visuals in this one are so cool. They're basic, but I love them. I don't know what it's called. This has been done like... Again, I don't know what it's called, so it's kind of hard to talk about. But when we see the characters and we just like go past them and they sort of fade into these basic figures, right? And they sort of bleed into shapes and whatnot. I love that. There's a lot of cool shots in this one where we see like characters just wither away into like these little blocks and whatnot. It looks cool. And the song is really good too. I enjoyed the song. I don't think it's my favorite. I feel like my favorite song might still be by Aimer. That was a couple of weeks ago. And yes, that is also on my main playlist. I listen to it regularly. But it's a good ending. Definitely better than the last one. I think the last one, in hindsight, is probably my least favorite one. Alright. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.